Okay, so today I want to talk about common saxophone problems, some things that I have personally experienced, and how you can easily fix them without, going to a repair shop or something. So the first one is probably obvious to most of you, is the sticky G sharp and low C sharp keys. That happens all the time, especially on my tenor. For whatever reason, that C sharp key, that low C sharp key, is always sticky. So what you can do is obviously take, a piece of paper or a dollar bill. People like using a dollar bill because apparently it has some kind of. It's easier to get the gunk off of it out of the keys, but you can use a piece of paper too, and just. I don't have one right here with me, but you take a piece of paper or a dollar bill or something, you stick it through there, and then you close the key, and then you pull it through, and it gets some of the gunk out of there. Also, you can get debit ATM cards or gift cards and stuff that you have and stick them in there when you put your horn away, so it opens the key. So that the reason it sticks is because when you leave it, out without playing it, those are the keys that are closed and not open. Because all the other keys, except for the palm keys, which are a little different because the palm keys aren't articulated, they're directly, you push it down and it goes up, but these are articulated with a mechanism, and so it can stay down even if you pull the thing. If you push the key down, it's an articulated action. It's not just directly like these, but they can stick because they're closed all the time, and the moisture and spit and water and stuff collects in there and then it sticks. And so you can also get these things called key leaves, which are basically the same thing as putting a card in there, but you can. I guess they're more efficient because they're kind of connected. You put one of the key leaves in the G sharp and one in the C sharp, and I don't have them, but people seem like they have them and they really like them. So that's the first one: sticky G sharp and low C sharp. Sometimes the low E flat sticks too, but again, that one's not an articulated key. It's direct action, so you can just push it down as hard as you want, and it'll open it eventually. So that's not a big deal. So the next one I want to talk about that I don't think is the most common one, or the one that a lot of people talk about, but for me it's been really common because I'll often like to experiment with having my neck of the saxophone in different alignments depending if I'm sitting down or standing up. Is sometimes when you have your neck cocked over too far in one way or the other, it will vent the octave key in a way that it'll make it sound really bad. And so that is just that, maybe if you're playing standing up, sometimes if I'm playing standing up, I like to have my, maybe not this far, but I like to have my neck a little bit, cocked this way. And so sometimes the octave mechanism will be misaligned because the post right here will not be touching the right part of the octave mechanism on the neck. And so the neck, the pad right here will not close all the way, and it'll just feel like your horn is leaking on the bottom end because there's air going through there. So, all you need to do is just align your neck back in like relatively straight alignment. I mean, you can have it a few degrees, here or there, but and then you're fine, and then you can save yourself a trip to the repair shop because you're like, why is my horn leaking? And then you figure out, oh, it's just this. So the next one I want to talk about is reed chirping, and I used to have a horrible problem with this. Especially when I was in high school, I never knew what to do with the chirping of the reed, and until I figured out what actually causes it. So it doesn't have anything to do with the actual mechanics of the saxophone. It has to do with how your mouthpiece and reed are laying together. So the table of a mouthpiece, I didn't go over this in my mouthpiece video. I probably should have. Let me get this one out. The table of the mouthpiece, if you can see, is the part where the reed sits, right? And that's clarinet and saxophone right there. So the table of the mouthpiece should be perfectly 100% scientifically flat. And if it's not, a lot of times it's not, because of the production quality is iffy, and or like it's a cheap mouthpiece, or the material is plastic and it's not, and it warps or whatever. But if it's not actually completely flat, then the reed won't seal on the mouthpiece, and it'll chirp. And the reason it'll chirp is because it's like a leak. It's air is escaping through the bottom of the mouthpiece, and you don't want that. But sometimes your table of your mouthpiece could be flat, but the reed is not flat. And so how do you correct for that? Well, there's two methods that you could use. What I have found to be easier is buying this thing right here. It's called a reed Geek. If you can see, it's a reed Geek. It's basically a bar of some kind of stainless steel, looks like metal, and it's sharp on the edges, and you can use it to flatten the table of your reed. So basically you just take like one flat part of it and go to the table of the reed, the flat part of the reed, and just go back and forth a couple times. And see, even on that one, there's some material that came off, which means this reed isn't as flat as it probably should be. And you can do that on all your reeds. Some of them need it more than others. The other thing you can do if you don't have this is get, when life happens again, get some like fine grit sandpaper and just rub sandpaper, one direction like this on your reed, and it'll flatten it that way too. I haven't had as much luck with that method as I had with doing the Reed Geek. Plus, like, I can't just carry sandpaper around all the time. But this is easier to just carry around. But if you don't want to spend like $50 on this, because nobody has any money anymore. But if you don't want to spend the $50 on this, just go get some sandpaper for like, $2, and it'll probably do 90% of what that'll do. And but that's what causes that reed chirping thing. And I'm sure clarinet and saxophone, you guys have all encountered that before, and it's really annoying, and I wish I had the solution how to get rid of it earlier. So the next two items I'm going to be talking about are basically leaks. So the way you can determine whether your horn is leaking is that basically your sound will sound stuffy, like abnormally stuffy, and you'll be able to tell pretty quickly it's not you. Because after years of playing, you know what you sound like, and you know that, well, I know I don't sound like that, so it's got to be something with the horn. Sometimes it's the reed, sometimes it's just you're having a bad day, but if it's consistent stuffiness, especially in the bottom end of the horn, because something about this double octave mechanism can get screwed up, but especially in the low end, if it gets really stuffy, then you've got a leak somewhere. And a way you can test for leaks, seeing if you have a significant leak, is I learned this from a YouTuber named Matt Storer, who does all these cool videos on saxophone repair stuff. And he made a video on how he does this pop test, which you can use on your saxophones to determine whether you have a really significant leak. Basically what you do is just you finger a low B flat, and I'm going to put it by the microphone so you can hear it. You finger a low B flat, and then you pop your F key. You just close and open your F key, so it would sound like this if your horn's sealing well, which this one is. See, hear it pop? If your horn has a significant leak, it won't pop like that. It'll just sound dead, and like it just thud. It won't do that popping. And so that means you have a leak somewhere. And that means you're going to have to go to your repair shop eventually. Not now, obviously, but when life starts up again, then, go to your repair shop. Luckily, I got my alto repaired like the second week of March. So I just got it in before everything just went to what. And the most common place you're going to have a leak is going to be in the bottom of the right hand keys. So your F, E, your D, these ones in here. Because these keys all articulate the key you're pushing down and this key, which is the key above the F, which is kind of known as the dummy F, which is really used to play F sharp, and that's why when you play F sharp you have to switch like this, because in actuality you're finding a way to open the F but still have the dummy F down to make an F sharp, because remember all the saxophone is just a tube with all these holes in it that, you know, the more holes you open, the higher the sound gets. So that's why, and plus they're bigger. These keys are bigger and they have more mechanisms to them. Like if you can see, the right hand doesn't nearly have the same amount of, or the left hand rather, doesn't have the same amount of complexity in the way it's built as the right hand. I mean, you can see all this key guard if you look at the bottom or the other side of the saxophone. I mean, you know, look at all this stuff right there. You know, that's a lot of complicated stuff that it's really easy for that to get out of alignment, and then there's really nothing you can do but take it to a repair person, because I've never been able to figure out what the heck to do with that when that happens. But that's happened to me so many times, especially with my alto, my custom alto that I have. This one, I've had this one for like almost 5 years now, and I've had to have these bottom, you know, right hand keys readjusted like 3 times. So it's just a really common place for it to happen. But anyway, that's all I can think of with these common saxophone quirks and problems. I was about to say quirks and features. If you guys watch Doug DeMuro, you understand that. I watched one of his videos today. But, so, I think that's it. Think of another one. On some horns, sometimes you can fix some minor things, with like the rods coming out. Like for whatever reason with my saxophones, the rod that holds the octave mechanism on the neck seems to come out a lot, and so, you know, just get a tiny little flathead screwdriver, and you should, most saxophone players should have a small flathead screwdriver in their case so that they can do that. Sometimes these ones that these big rods right here that operate the I think this one does the high E key and the high F sharp key. These big long rods, sometimes the posts will come out of them and you have to screw them back in. Sometimes these ones will come out, these B flat and C ones will come out. But, you can just screw those in, and that's an easy fix. You don't have to go to a repair person for that. Also, if a spring pops loose, usually you can just put that back in by hand, or like, depending on what, type of screw you had. One time, one of you saxophone players at Ridgeview, I fixed your saxophone because this spring that operated the D key actually broke. And that was pretty easy to fix. You just take this out, and you take the key off, and then you just screw in a new spring and then put it back. So some little repair things you can do, but if it's anything that has to do with the main keys of the horn leaking, yeah, just go take that to a repair shop. You're not gonna fix that on your own unless you know how to do that. Some people do, and they can fix them on themselves. But most people, even most pros, they have to take their horns to repair people, because like they spent all their lives learning how to play and not learning how to repair the thing. So but those are some things that if you wanted to fix them yourself, or some problems that you can correct yourself without having to do anything, going to a repair person or something. And that's probably pretty useful information right now, because we're all stuck at home, no one's doing anything, so you can't go to your repair guy anyway. So anyway, that's all for that one, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.